You are Locked On Mets Postcast, part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
They played a lot longer than they were supposed to, but tonight, the New York Mets 2024 season came to a very disappointing end. Welcome in to this edition of the Locked On Mets Postcast, an edition that we thought was going to come multiple times throughout the year, and this team just kept fighting and fighting and fighting, and even in tonight's game, they tried to go down fighting. I am your host, Chris Schubert, and welcome in as the New York Mets fall in Game 6, 10-5 to the Los Angeles Dodgers, and drop this NLCS series 4-2. The season has unfortunately come to an end, and listen, we're not going to get super emotional here on the show, but we are going to try to look back at what was a fun ride. We will talk about tonight's game, of course, but this is a run that I don't think any of us thought was going to happen. This season should have been over many, many times, yet here we were every single night being able to enjoy this team. So we will get into it all here on this edition of the Locked On Mets Postcast. But before that, this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. The New York Mets forced this series back to LA. They forced a Game 6 in this series, and they put their ace, Sean Manaea, on the mound. And the New York Mets, just like the New York Mets had done all throughout the year, had gotten off to a good start via their bats and via just weird things happening. Pete Alonso drives the first run in of the game to make it 1-0 Mets on a ball that I believe ended up being like 40.8 miles per hour off the bat, but put the ball in play. Good things happen. The Mets plate the first run, and you start thinking to yourself all of the different possibilities of what could be when the Mets get out to the early lead. But that would be for naught, as Tommy Edman immediately responded in the bottom of the first with a 2-run double to make it 2-1. He would return again in the third to hit a 2-run home run to make it 4-1. That would be the second, it would be the first of two-run home runs that we would get in that third inning, as Will Smith would hit one to make it 6-1. Mark Vientos, who has become an absolute star in front of our eyes, he hits a home run to make it 6-3. Ohtani drives home a run to make it 7-3 in the sixth. A sac fly in the seventh when the Mets were kind of rallying a little bit, makes it 7-4. And then the Dodgers put on all the insurance that was necessary, and they make it 8-4, 9-4, and 10-4 via a bunch of sacrifice flies and hits from the usual suspects in the series to make it 10-4. And the Mets get one back in the ninth, but that would do it as the Mets fall 10-5. And look, this is really simple. The New York Mets lost this series because their pitching, their starting pitching, their bullpen hit a wall. We talked about it after Game 5 when they were able to force a Game 6 in LA, that you would sign up for the New York Mets having their ace, the guy that has brought them this far, one of the guys that has brought them this far, with him being on the mound with an opportunity to force a Game 7 against the Dodgers bullpen game. You would have taken that 10 out of 10 times with the way this season played out for the New York Mets. Unfortunately, Sean Manaea had done so much, and this pitching staff had done so much in the second half in September against the Brewers, against the Phillies, that they just ran out of fuel. I mean, we can go one by one. Sean Manaea, through the most innings he's thrown in a really long time as a starting pitcher, and in that second half carried this team in a big way. Luis Severino, coming off of an injury, hadn't thrown this many innings in over 2 years, and then he has a postseason run where he's making start after start after start. Jose Quintana is a veteran pitcher. Yes, you brought him in for runs like this in August and September, and he was great in August and in September, but he just hit a wall. The bullpen hit a wall. Phil Maton, again, throughout the regular season in the second half, how many key outings did he give this New York Mets team? They just hit a wall. Jose Budo, going from starter to a reliever, was great for this team in the second half. In the postseason, I think just ran out of gas. This team ran out of gas. And the moment Sean Manaea was only able to give you 2 innings in this game, it was never going to go the Mets' way. The path for them forcing a Game 7 was Sean Manaea taking the ball and looking like the second half Sean Manaea, the ace Sean Manaea, the guy that helped bring this team this far. And he went 5, 6, maybe even 7 innings and was putting up a bunch of zeros against this Dodgers team. That was the path for this team to be able to win this game against a Dodgers bullpen game and force a game 7. It was just not in the cards. This team, at least on the pitching side, ran out of fuel. They just didn't have the horses left at this point. And you can't get mad at Manaea. You can't get mad at Luis Severino. You can't get mad at Jose Quintana. You can't get mad at these guys, because the only reason we're here right now, the only reason why we have the opportunity to do this postcast, even in a loss, even in the season ending in the NLCS, just 2 wins away from going to the World Series, the only reason why we're here right now is because of what those guys did in the second half of the year to get us to that point. But again, when you look at the box score and you see Manaea only gave you 2 innings, it didn't matter what his stat line was. That was never going to be the recipe. That was never going to be enough. And I thought Carlos Mendoza did a fantastic job trying to keep the game as close as he could. He used Edwin Diaz in the right spot. Could have potentially used him a little bit earlier, but he got 6 outs in the meat in the middle of the game to try to keep this game close, try to give his bats an opportunity to strike back. And it is not like this team didn't have opportunities to strike back. 13 runners left on base, 2 for 9 with runners in scoring position. In 5 of the first 6 innings of this game, they had 2+ base runners on the base paths. They had the opportunities. They just couldn't come through with those 2-out hits. They couldn't come through with those clutch RBI moments to help draw this game closer and closer and really put pressure on the Dodgers. There were moments where you thought, this is the inning. This is where they're going to show the 2024 Mets, and they're going to be able to make that comeback. But unfortunately, it just came up short over and over again. And it wasn't, like I said, it was not like it was for a lack of opportunity. They had multiple base runners on in the first couple of innings of this game. In the second inning, they had 2 runners on. In the third inning, they got multiple guys on. In the fourth inning, they got that's where they got the Vientos home run. But again, multiple guys on base. They had opportunities. That 6th inning is really the one where you thought they could turn it around. It's 6-3 at that point. Alvarez leads off with a single. You turn it over to the top of the lineup. You think this is where if they're going to make hay, it's going to be right here. You get the next 2 guys to make outs, but a 2-out walk from Vientos, a 2-out walk from Alonso, and you get Jesse Winker up as the go-ahead run in the top of the 6th. That was it. That was the moment for the Mets to make some noise. Even if it wasn't a grand slam to take the lead, a base knock to draw it closer, I think probably energizes that dugout a little bit more. It gets them excited. They start to feel once again like they can do this, just like they did against the Brewers, just like they did at the end of the year against the Braves. They start to believe even more so than we've seen them believe throughout the course of this run. It was for naught as Winker flew out to left field. And that was really the last major chance this team got, because the Dodgers were able to add on some insurance runs. But you just saw a team tonight, specifically with the pitching side of things, was a team that ran out of gas. They just didn't have it, and it led to a blowout loss, which is what every one of these losses has been on either side. They have looked like this. There have been crooked numbers for the team that has won, and unfortunately, the 2024 season for the New York Mets has come to an end. But as you see right there on the side, we're not going to cry because it's over. We're going to smile because it happened. So we're going to take a look back at what has been an absolutely insane run for this team. I see some comments in the chat, and I will get to those as well. So we'll do that here on the other side. PrizePicks, the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Download the app today, use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. PrizePicks, run your game. Make sure you are subscribed to us here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel, because just because the Mets season is over doesn't mean we aren't going to have you covered here with some postcasts. I still got you covered on the Jet side of things, even though on the night where the New York Mets season has come to an end, certainly looks like the Jet season has come to an end as well, as they are going to fall to 2-5 after losing to the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday Night Football. But I've got you covered on the Jet side of things. Jay Berman's got you covered on the Giants side of things, and there is another New York team that is going to be participating in the World Series. So if you happen to be somebody who likes to, still check in on the other team in town, Jay Berman's got you covered over there. So make sure you subscribe to us here on the YouTube page. Turn on that notification bell so that you are notified when we go live. And look, I'm disappointed. I am frustrated. We were 2 wins away from watching this team go to the World Series for the first time since 2015. I truly started to believe that this team was going to go on a even more special run than we got. It started to feel like a World Series was in the cards for this team. And it was upsetting to watch the game unfold. It was hard to watch the game unfold because, unfortunately, that is the lasting memory that we're going to have of this team, watching them lose to the Dodgers in Dodger Stadium, as the Dodgers will move on to the World Series to take on the Yankees. And I don't want that to be the lasting image that we have of this team. And so that's why I want to spend a couple of minutes here in this second segment of the postcast talking about just the awesomeness that this has been, that this run has been. This is a group that was not supposed to do this. This was a group that was predicted to watch a lot of their members get traded at the trade deadline. This was a group that, by all projections, was barely supposed to win 85 games and be in the mix in the National League wildcard race. And what this team did in the second half, what this team did after falling 11 games below 500, and what this team did in August and September to get to a place of making a playoff run is nothing short of extraordinary. Because again, this is a group of, I say this endearingly, a group of misfits. An island of misfit toys is what this team was. They were not supposed to do this. This group was not supposed to get this far. They were not supposed to be 2 wins away from the World Series representing the National League. It wasn't supposed to happen. Rookie manager, a bunch of guys on 1-year contracts. They were competing, but not really competing. This was not supposed to happen. Yet this team came together as a group, and they provided us with memories that we are never going to forget. And I think what made us enjoy this run so much, and what made us connect with this team in a way that I personally haven't connected to a team the way that I did with this team, is you knew, and we all know, that this team is not going to look the same in 2025. The Dodgers, whatever happens the rest of the way with them, their team's going to look pretty similar next year, at least with some of the main hitters in their lineup, to the way it looked in this series. The New York Mets are not going to have that. This was this group's, this culture, this clubhouse. This was their one chance to break through. And so that's what makes it hurt so much, but that's what made the run so much fun. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to allow what happened here at the end of this Dodger series take away from what was an awesome Sunday in Milwaukee, what was an awesome Monday afternoon in game 1 of the doubleheader against the Atlanta Braves, what was an awesome moment down to their final 2 outs in Milwaukee in game 3 of the NL wildcard series, and Pete Alonso hitting that mammoth home run. I am not going to forget beating the Phillies in the NLDS. I am not going to forget Francisco Lindor's grand slam to put this team in the NLCS. And I am not going to forget this team fighting on their home field at Citi Field to keep this season alive and to force this series back to LA. That is what we are going to remember from this, at least I'm going to remember from this season. Yuki in the chat providing his favorite moments and worst moments of the playoffs, said my favorite moment in the playoffs is the Alonso home run versus the Brewers. I mean, that or the Lindor grand slam certainly would be the top of the list. And the worst moment, the Phillies walk-off in game 2, for me, it would be tonight, right? Because the season ended and this run came to an end. And here's why I put the message that I put there on the sidebar of don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened, because we learned a lot about the state of this franchise moving forward. Yes, this group is not going to come back in 2025 and look the same. But you know what? We learned we got a manager. Are there some places to improve? Are there some places for this manager to get better and this coaching staff to get better? Absolutely. But sometimes you have to learn through failure. You have to learn through adversity. You have to learn through challenges. And this playoff run was a challenge for Carlos Mendoza and his coaching staff. And while he did a great job getting this team to this point, there are probably some things that he could definitely clean up. And I think you're going to see him and that coaching staff get better. But you check the box that you have a manager. You check the box that you have a future star at third base. And I don't even want to say future star anymore. He is a star. Mark Vientos setting Mets postseason records for the most RBIs in a postseason. Mark Vientos has emerged as one of the best offensive, and even with his defense, one of the best overall third basemen in the National League. There's not a question anymore about who the opening day third baseman should be for this team. You have a superstar player at third base, a guy that can have 30 home run power, can drive in 100 runs, and is a superstar for this team. You check that box in a big way. You also put to bed any type of conversation that we are ever going to have again about Francisco Lindor's place in this franchise, meaning he is a superstar. He is a captain. He is an MVP, and his MVP season, his leadership, what he did helping this team offensively in the second half get to this point will be remembered forever. And I am not going to discuss a slow start with Francisco Lindor ever again. He is going to go down as one of the all-time great Mets with what he has done so far and what I believe he's going to continue to do in a Mets uniform. And you also learned that you have a front office, not that you needed the confirmation, but to see David Stearns come over from Milwaukee, small market, operating with a small budget, coming over to New York and putting together a team that could get to the NLCS is just something that was extraordinary. And I think if you gave him truth serum, he did not expect this team to get this far. They certainly would have probably made some different moves if they thought this team was going to make it this far, because they definitely needed the horses out there in the bullpen, and they definitely needed some depth in that rotation because they just wore those guys down. And those guys did everything in their power to will this team to a World Series berth, but it just didn't get there in the end. They just ran out of steam. Avi in the chat says, baseball is a funny sport. You just never know. Trust me, 2004 is a constant reminder. Baseball is by far the best sport to follow because it is 6 months of a roller coaster. It's why it's my favorite sport. There is nothing like the ups and downs and the moments of a baseball season. And if you need any further proof of that, the 2024 New York Mets season was the absolute roller coaster of all roller coasters. And it ended not so great, but the future is so bright. And this team gave us so many great memories that we are going to remember forever. And it was disappointing. They went out, and kind of limped their way out here in game 6. There were opportunities to win this game, but it just wasn't meant to be, especially with the pitching being the way that it was. And it was sad. It was a sad way for the season to end because, again, there were so many great moments. And for it to end in this much disappointment, to end in this fashion, to end not really standing a chance with the way that your pitching lined up early and the way they were giving up runs late, it is a sad way for this story to end. But for a good portion of this team, Lindor, Vientos, Mendoza, Stearns, Nimmo, this is just chapter 1 of this new era of Mets baseball, and I'm hoping that we, in 2025, are going to have a lot more moments like the ones we had in 2024. I can do without the 0-5 start, and I can do without the being 11 games below 500 and needing to go through everything that we went through. But it was still an awesome ride, and I found myself after Game 4 when they dropped to 3-1 in the series. I found myself thinking a lot about 2015. And in 2015, my main takeaway wasn't I was upset that they obviously lost in the World Series, but there was part of me that wondered, was this the best chance that group was going to be able to get? And you never know if you're going to be able to get back to a World Series. And so missing that opportunity in 2015 felt like a gut punch. It felt like that was the chance because nothing is guaranteed in baseball. Avi said it, baseball is a funny sport. All sports are weird. All sports are funny. You can look at a roster and say, man, that is a guaranteed postseason contender year in and year out. Well, the New York Mets, after that run in 2015, made it to the wild card round in 2016 and then waited 6 years for the next playoff berth. So that was the thought that was running in my head when they went down 3-1, that I worried that this was going to be a very similar situation. And over the last couple of days, being able to kind of sit back and reflect on it, I believe in the ownership, I believe in the front office, and I believe in the core players on this team to make sure that doesn't happen. And who knows if we will ever get this far again? Who knows if we will ever be able to have an opportunity to celebrate a championship with this core? But I believe in the process that this team is going to have a chance to do that. And only time will tell if that ends up being the case or if there will be another drought. But that's what hurts the most about this, is because next year's not guaranteed. This year was. This team was in the NLCS. This team was 2 wins away from the World Series. So that's the thing that stings the most, because you don't know what the future looks like until you get there. So we won't know if this team's going to have another swing of making a postseason run until we get to the 2025 postseason. And there's a long time before then. We will wrap up this edition of the Locked On Mets Postcast. Got a lot of thank yous, my final thoughts. So we will do that here on the other side. FanDuel, we baseball season's over, at least for us here on the Mets side of things. So maybe you're looking at football. Make sure you download the FanDuel app. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Sure. Ryan Finkelstein will also have thoughts. I believe he is live as well on the Locked On Mets side of things. So you'll hear both of our perspectives as the Mets season unfortunately came to an end this evening, dropping the game 6 to the Dodgers 10-5. And I have prepared this multiple times throughout this postseason. I thought we were going to do this after the Milwaukee game in game 3. Or at least during game 3, I thought I needed to prepare this conversation with everybody. I thought earlier this series I was going to have to do it, but this has been an absolute incredible journey. And so just thank you. Thank you to everybody who has joined us live and has interacted with these shows, everyone who's listening to them after the fact in the podcast feed. Just a big thank you, because when I signed on board to do these postcasts for the Mets and the Jets, the idea was there was going to be a lot of Jets for the season that they were going to have, and that for the Mets, we would finish out the regular season, potentially do some postseason stuff if they got there, but really was kind of setting the stage, setting the tone for what 2025 was going to be here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. And I don't think anybody, myself, the executive producers here for these postcasts who I work with every single day, making sure all the ad reads are right, making sure everything is up to date for us here on these shows. I don't think any of us thought that we were going to get to this stage and be able to have these kinds of shows. So it was not what we anticipated. We didn't anticipate doing this many baseball shows this late into the season, but it was so much fun. And that is thanks to all of you. That is thanks to everybody who has commented. That is thanks to everybody who has shared these videos, who has liked these videos, who has interacted with these videos, who's listened to us in the podcast feed. I can't say thank you enough for making this such a fun start to what I hope to be an incredible journey here with the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel and these Locked On Mets postcasts. So again, from the bottom of my heart, you guys have made this run so much fun for me, because I will forever associate this run with these postcasts, with this community that we are building, and with each and every one of you who has joined us here every day. Because when these games, were on the calendar, and I'd wake up every day knowing that there was Mets playoff baseball, it wasn't just the adrenaline rush of the Mets baseball postseason run and what it could be, but it was also the excitement of being able to connect with each and every one of you after every one of these games, breaking them down from every possible angle. Whether it was wins, losses, whatever the case may be, it was always a exciting time to be able to push the record button, turn on this microphone, and hang out with you guys after every Mets game. So again, a sincere thank you for helping make this such a fun journey here throughout this 2024 postseason run. Well, that is going to do it for us here on the Locked On Mets postcast for 2024. Again, a huge thank you to you all for making this so much fun. If you want to catch more of my content and you are a Jets fan, I still have you covered the rest of the season, whatever that's going to look like on the Jets side of things, with the Locked On Jets postcast. So you will see me live here on this page a bunch here throughout the rest of the Jets season. Make sure you are also tapped into the Locked On Mets podcast with Ryan Finkelstein. He'll have you covered all throughout the remainder of the postseason, all throughout what is supposed to be a very busy offseason for the New York Mets, and to get you ready for the 2025 season. So for the final time for the 2024 New York Mets, a Locked On Mets postcast edition here on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. Again, thank you to everybody who has joined us. A disappointing end to the 2024 season for the New York Mets as they fall to the Los Angeles Dodgers 4-2. The Dodgers will be moving on to the World Series. The New York Mets will be turning the page towards the offseason of 2024. A fantastic run, one that we will never, ever forget. Thank you for joining us here on this edition of the Locked On Mets postcast, and I will see you all in 2025.